Well, I think um, I think conversations about race uh, and ethnicity are just sort of difficult anyway, and I think um, the microaggression conversations sort of an extension of that. It in a way sort of like talking about sex with your kids. It's like we know we should be talking about it early and kind of orienting them to certain things in a preventive way, but it's hard, it's awkward, it's tricky. There are lots of tricky terrain to navigate. Like I and I'm an African man, and with grandparents who migrated from the deep South in the 1940s. They couldn't vote, so they came here to California but I recall like a few years ago, my son brought for Black History Month, they were talking about Rosa Parks and the book, and I was kind of, oh my God, like it was interesting. Like, even though I'm well educated, I understand our history. I have this personal history in terms of my grandparents and why they migrated, but still, like, having this conversation with him about Rosa Parks, the racism it was a little uncomfortable. It was interesting. Given me who I am, it was not an easy thing, and so I imagine that given this larger colorblindness ideology that's kind of out there in the ether and the air that we breathe, and if you have a certain demographic, then that's sort of like this ideal in terms of interacting with other folks. It could be difficult just having those conversations, and when maybe you're approached or you hear something about something that might be race related, if you've got this uneasiness about race-based conversations, if you have this colorblindness ideology, you might be more inclined to avoid the conversation, to come up with alternative explanations for why something like this thing happened. So I think the one of these kind of overarching recommendations is, given how clear the science is in terms of things that we notice about people, whether or not we want to. We notice gender, we notice race, we notice age. These things are very salient. Very young kids are able to make these distinctions. They notice them, they differentiate, they form friendship groups based on these things. In ways that us adults sometimes are kind of concerned about. Like, I'm concerned that all of his friends are boys, for example. The birthday party, only boys are invited. But these natural groupings kind of happen, and we need to think about having conversations, talking about these things, having open dialogue with our kids when certain things happen, and trying to be comfortable with that back and forth, and understanding that we're going to make mistakes at times in terms of the advice that we give, kind of to Anastasia's point, that these aren't going to be perfect conversations. We'll likely get better at it along the way. And even folks like us who are trained in child psychology, and we think a lot about this stuff. We do research. Anastasia, she writes books about it. We don't get it right all the time. And that's because there often isn't a right way to deal with it. The point is to make the effort to try to understand that kids see the world in part through race, gender, age, and let's not pretend that these things aren't salient characteristics that they notice, and that they're going to bring back home sometimes race-related experiences, and we need to try to have those conversations, even though they may kind of fall flat at times, but you keep trying, basically.